Life is a journey, full of twists and turns, unexpected roadblocks, and breathtaking vistas. But beneath the surface of everyday events, there are moments when you might sense something deeper at work, a feeling that the challenges you face, the struggles and setbacks, aren't just random misfortunes, but are instead part of a larger, divine plan. Many people yearn to discover their true purpose, to understand their calling in this world. And often, before stepping fully into that calling, there comes a period of testing and preparation. But how do you know when this is happening? What is the clearest sign that God is testing and preparing you for your calling? To recognize the number one sign, you must first understand how God works in the lives of those He calls. Throughout history, every person who was chosen for a special purpose, whether it was Moses, David, Esther, or Paul, underwent a season of preparation. This period was rarely comfortable. It was seldom easy, but it was always necessary. Their stories reveal that God doesn't just hand out callings like invitations. He refines, shapes, and molds His chosen ones, often through circumstances that test their faith, character, and perseverance. So, what is the number one sign that God is at work, testing and preparing you for your calling? It's this. You find yourself facing circumstances that seem designed to stretch you beyond your comfort zone, to reveal your weaknesses, and to force you to rely not on your own strength, but on God's power and guidance. This sign manifests in many ways. Sometimes it's a series of challenges that seem too great to bear. Other times, it's a period of waiting, a time when nothing seems to be happening, and you begin to question whether your life has any direction at all. Or it could be a season of loss, when things you once depended on are stripped away, leaving you vulnerable and exposed. But in all these scenarios, there's a common thread. God is inviting you to let go of self-reliance and to trust in Him. He's preparing you by refining your character, strengthening your faith, and teaching you lessons you could never learn in comfort or ease. Let's look at some powerful examples from Scripture and from real life to understand this process more deeply. Consider the story of Joseph. As a young man, he had dreams of greatness, glimpses of a future in which he would play a pivotal role. But before he could step into that destiny, Joseph endured betrayal by his own brothers, was sold into slavery, and later falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years, it seemed as though his life was moving in the opposite direction of his dreams. But those years were not wasted. They were a time of preparation. In the darkness of the prison cell, Joseph learned humility, patience, and unwavering trust in God. When the time came, he was ready, not only to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, but to steward an entire nation through crisis. Or think of Moses, who spent 40 years tending sheep in the wilderness after fleeing Egypt. Once, he had tried to fulfill his calling in his own strength, but God's preparation required solitude, humility, and a deepening dependence on Him. When God finally called Moses at the burning bush, he was no longer the impulsive prince, but a man who understood his limitations and was ready to be used by God. What these stories reveal is that the most significant sign of God's preparation is not outward success, nor is it a life free from hardship. Instead, it's the experience of being stretched, challenged, and sometimes even broken, so that you might be rebuilt into someone capable of fulfilling your calling. You might ask, why does God use difficulty and testing as preparation? The answer lies in the nature of true calling. A calling from God is not merely a job or a title. It's a sacred responsibility, often demanding more than you can give on your own. If you step into it unprepared, relying solely on your talent or ambition, you will quickly be overwhelmed. But if you have been tested, if you have learned to lean on God, to persevere when things get tough, to keep your heart humble and teachable, then you are ready to be entrusted with something greater. So, how does this sign show up in your life? Maybe you're in a season where nothing seems to go right. Doors that once opened easily are now firmly shut. Relationships are strained. Your plans are falling apart. You feel overlooked, forgotten, or misunderstood. In these moments, it's tempting to believe that God has abandoned you or that you have missed your chance. But in reality, these are often the very circumstances God uses to prepare his people. Think about the refining process for gold. Before it can shine, gold must be purified in the fire. The heat separates impurities, leaving behind something precious and valuable. In the same way, the challenges you face are not meant to destroy you, but to refine you. Every trial, every disappointment, every setback is an opportunity for God to shape your character and deepen your faith. But how do you respond when you recognize this sign? The key is to embrace the process rather than resist it. Instead of asking, "Why me?" begin to ask, "What is God teaching me in this season?" Pay attention to the lessons hidden in your struggles. Are you learning patience? Are you being called to forgive, to let go of bitterness, to trust God's timing rather than your own? Are you discovering new strengths you didn't know you had, or weaknesses that need to be surrendered to God? This is not an easy path, and it is not always clear. Sometimes God's preparation feels like wandering in the wilderness with no end in sight. But remember, God is not interested in your comfort, but in your transformation. He cares more about who you are becoming than about the ease of your circumstances. During these times, it's crucial to stay connected to God through prayer, scripture, and community. Surround yourself with people who will encourage and support you, who will remind you of God's faithfulness and help you keep perspective. And most importantly, keep your heart open. The testing season is not forever. Eventually, the preparation will give way to purpose, and you will find yourself equipped for the very thing God has called you to do. Another important aspect of this sign is that the testing often targets the areas where you feel least capable. If you are naturally confident, you may experience situations that humble you. If you are used to relying on your intellect, you may face problems that no amount of logic can solve. If you are comfortable in your routines, God may disrupt them, forcing you to step into the unknown. All of this is intentional. God is not being cruel. He is making sure that when you step into your calling, you do so with a heart that is fully surrendered and a faith that is unshakable. It's also important to recognize that God's preparation is not just about removing weaknesses, but about developing new strengths. In times of testing, you may discover gifts and abilities you never knew you had. You may develop greater empathy, resilience, or wisdom. The pain and struggle of this season will become the foundation for the impact you will have on others. Look at David, the shepherd boy who became king. Before he ever faced Goliath, David spent years in obscurity, tending sheep, protecting them from lions and bears. Those hidden years were his training ground. When the moment of destiny arrived, David was not only skilled with a sling, but he was also a man after God's own heart. A man who had learned to trust God in solitude and obscurity. In your own life, the number one sign that God is preparing you for your calling may be a season of hiddenness. You may feel unseen or unappreciated, but remember, what happens in the unseen places is often the most important. God is building your character, shaping your heart, and preparing you for a future you cannot yet imagine. This process also requires surrender. There may come a point when you have to let go of your own plans, dreams, or timelines. Surrendering to God's will is not about giving up. It's about trusting that His plan is better than yours. It's about believing that He knows what you need, even when you don't understand. If you are in a season of testing and preparation, take heart. You are in good company. Every person who was ever used by God went through a similar process. Their stories remind us that the testing is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of something new. As you walk through this season, remember that God's presence is with you. You are not alone. He sees your struggles, your tears, your doubts, and He is working in ways you cannot see, weaving together the threads of your life into a tapestry of purpose and meaning. In times of testing, it's easy to lose sight of hope, but hold on to the promise that God is faithful. Even when you can't see the way forward, He is guiding you step by step. He has not forgotten you. He is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Even Jesus underwent a season of preparation. Before beginning his public ministry, he spent 40 days in the wilderness, fasting, praying, and facing temptation. In that solitude and struggle, he emerged ready to fulfill his purpose. If the Son of God needed preparation, how much more do we? So if you find yourself in a season of difficulty, uncertainty, or waiting, recognize it for what it is, a sign that God is at work in your life. He is stretching you, refining you, and preparing you for your calling. Instead of resisting, lean in. Trust the process. Let God do His work in you, knowing that He who began a good work will be faithful to complete it. One day you will look back on this season and see how every challenge, every disappointment, every moment of struggle was not wasted. You will see how God used it all to prepare you for the unique calling He has placed on your life. And you will be able to step into that calling with confidence, knowing that you have been tested, shaped, and equipped by the hand of God Himself. The number one sign that God is testing and preparing you for your calling is not the presence of ease or comfort, but the experience of being stretched, challenged, and refined. It is the sense that your circumstances are pushing you beyond your limits, forcing you to rely on God in ways you never have before. Embrace this season. Trust the process, and know that God is preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine.